Hey everybody, Keith Dotson here, and I think I'm going to start a YouTube channel called Useless History because I often take photographs like this one of a sign I found in Lynchburg, Virginia, and then I become obsessed about what it might have been for, and I spend hours doing research to learn all I can about the thing, build a history that's of absolutely no consequence to anyone. But it still seems important to me, and I'll bet there are a lot of people who live in Lynchburg who walk past this old sign and have no idea who the people behind these three names were. To look at it, I suspected it might be a law firm or maybe an advertising agency, but those are both way off the mark. In fact, Bell, Barker, and Jennings was a very successful hardware wholesale company that sold hardware to small hardware stores around the country. I found an article, a biography of sorts, about one of these men in a publication called the Hardware Dealers Magazine. There he is, our hero, Mr. O.B. Barker. But before we learn about him, I have to show you this. First of all, remember, this is a monthly magazine targeted at hardware wholesalers. Can you imagine that? It's massive. I don't know how many pages it is, but it's got a lot of pages. And I know there are still trade publications a day, and some of them may be monthly, although most of them are probably online now. But it's hard to imagine someone actually reading this thing every month. But, those were different times then. Speaking of different times, look at this lock ad series I found in the magazine. I used to work in the ad agency business. In fact, I was a creative director and an art director for about 15 years, and I'm fascinated by the design and psychology behind old ads compared to what we see today. In this case, the Corbin Lock Company actually bought 16 pages, and they wrote and illustrated a history of locks with one-liner verse on each page. I've never seen anything like this before. Lockology, the lock in the door of today and of yore. And I love the way back in those days they put a hyphen in today and in tomorrow. In early times, doors were unknown. As chronicled, the first were stone. Then came the door. 'Twas crude at first, with just a latch no wind could burst. A sliding bar of proper wood our ancestors thought very good. With grim distrust of fellow man, suggestions of the lock began. Divided doors were later known, with knocker, latch, and hinge as shown. In days of old, when knights were bold, forged iron locks were made to hold. For safety then were tumblers made, shown by notches cut in key blade. The knob latch next was used by day, the curfew brought dead bolt in play. The plate lock once was up to date and block of wood on iron plate. The mortise lock then took its place with smaller key and polished face. The thumb knob came to set the latch, by passkey worked which moved the catch. In making locks a wondrous zeal, the cylinder and key reveal. To close the door with perfect ease and friction save, this latch would please. The unit here will please you most of all the locks this age can boast. And then we have the happy housewife with her new lock set. What a deal, hon. Always showing the factory, and there's the working man forging her custom lock and key. What an ad series. Crazy. Anyways, excuse my digression. I really wanted to talk about Mr. Barker. Oscar Bain, or O.B. Barker, was the president of Barker Jennings Hardware Company when this article was published in April 1905. And according to the article, Mr. Barker was born in Hanover County, Virginia on March 15, 1861. His father was a minister who died when Oscar was 2 years old, leaving his mother with 8 children younger than Oscar himself. The death of his father, together with the impact of the American Civil War, forced O.B. to begin working at the age of 14 when he found employment in a country store. That was the beginning of his retail career. Later, he put his retail experience to work in the hardware business where he excelled and moved up quickly. In addition to the biography part of this article, there's also Barker's take on the current state of affairs in the hardware business in 1905. Here, he's voicing a concern I saw repeated often in the magazine that his customers, the mom-and-pop small-town hardware stores that he sold products to, were acting as wholesalers and competing with him by selling wholesale to local contractors. The company survived that crisis and stayed open from 1885 until 2012, when ironically, they were killed not by small mom-and-pop shops, but rather by big box retailers like Walmart and Home Depot. Another thing I saw repeatedly in the list of concerns by members whether American-made hardware was as good as imported equipment. O.B. Barker passed away in 1937 at age 76, and he's buried in the Spring Hill Cemetery in Lynchburg. I'm such a nerd about this, believe it or not, I even went out on eBay and bought an old receipt from Bell, Barker, and Jennings from 1890, if you can believe it. I did. Look at this awesome old handwritten thing. It's in good shape. And there's our principals, E.L. Bell, J.T. Jennings, O.B. Barker. Dated January 27th, 1890. Look at all the fonts. They do cutlery, guns, engineers and miner supplies, paints and oils, jobbers and hardware. This is when they were on Main Street. So this is 2 years before they were in the building I photographed. And this looks like it says Miss Graham and Robinson, but I think that's actually Masseurs, which I believe they used at that time. Here's a Google Street View of the location I photographed on Commerce Street in Lynchburg, Virginia. They were located here from 1892, as it says on the sign, until 1966 when they moved to this location. After they closed in 2012, the building was used by a university that had actually bought the facility back in 2010. It looks vacant now, at least on this Google Street View. You can still find Barker Jennings Hardware Corporation Facebook online. At some point, they changed their name to Barker Jennings Corporation, and the final post was in 2012. No goodbyes, no public acknowledgments at all, just they posted something one day, and that was the end of it. They had 24 employees when they closed their doors. Anyways, if you're still here, thanks for staying with me for this obscure and probably irrelevant little slice of history. Here are some of the photographs I shot in Lynchburg that day. Thanks for watching, everybody. Be sure to visit my website, keithdodson.com.